I was hanging down with the kids earlier today, Mark.
Go on.
Yeah, I went to a Mamdani watch party, and it was that young demographic that have backed him. And when you do a vox pop, now a lot of the time you're used to being told sorry or something stronger. I approached one guy, and he looked at me, and he said, "Vox pop, hit me up, bro." And I thought, and I almost felt young, but then I just felt really old. Hit me up, bro, indeed.
Old and up too late, James. It feels a little bit like the early days of the podcast, doesn't it? Where we were always recording very late at night because so much was going on. Well, over the past few hours, plenty has gone on. The Democrats fighting back, maybe a lot to get into.
Yeah, I'm James Matthews in New York City. It's past midnight here, and the Big Apple has a big story. But so does America, a bruising night at the polls for Donald Trump.
And I'm Mark Stone. On the night the Democrats hit back, for many months they have been in the wilderness, rudderless, no opposition to President Trump. But have we now seen the beginning of the fight back? In New Jersey, in Virginia, in California, and in New York City. A proud socialist is the new mayor of America's biggest city.
Yes, from unknown to unstoppable. Zohran Mamdani is New York's first Muslim mayor, the history boy. But it's not the only Democrat success on the night. There is, as you say, Mark, Virginia, New Jersey, and California. Trump's opponents, they got the results they wanted. It feels like a blue wave, small but significant, perhaps.
James, we're going to get into what all this means, whether the Democrats will overplay their interpretation of their success. Short answer, yes. And whether the Republicans will underplay the punch they just got. Again, short answer, yes. But you're there in New York, where the world's most important city, maybe the most important city globally, just got a new leader. What's the mood?
Yeah, the capital of capitalism, as they call it, Mark. It's certainly been a night for the winners here. We were among them. We went to a Zohran Mamdani watch party, supporters of his, watching coverage on a big screen as it all unfolded. And of course, it unfolded their way. They were a young crowd in keeping with that demographic that connected with him the most. We'll hear from them in a second, but let's hear from Mamdani himself. He addressed supporters in Queens, New York.
Thank you, my friends. The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
New York's new mayor. I spoke, as I say, Mark, to his supporters. They were just down the road. I asked them a few questions. What did it mean to them? What did it mean for the Democratic Party? And what did it mean to Donald Trump?
The people want to change. We're not content with our Democratic Party, and we need somebody like him to bring, the future of the Democratic Party. It's growing and it's going in a different direction, and I'm proud of that.
Established Democrats are too in bed with billionaires and super rich people. And if you look around you, the reason why Mamdani's here is because he's like listening to people.
To Donald Trump, that he should take note that when people unite together, we're gonna pick the right person. I don't know what happened before, but now I think everybody has woken up.
So Mamdani becomes the youngest mayor of New York in a century. He won't take office until January, and my goodness, he has got some work ahead of him. He is a left-wing firebrand, a democratic socialist, close to the top now of the American political tree, and it looks as though he's even overperformed on the night as well. At the time of recording, his numbers show him projected to earn over 50% of the vote. Most people had Mamdani at around 40% of the vote. Incredibly, back in February, his polling had him at just 1%. What an extraordinary rise. What a journey.
Yeah, his campaign was built on progressive ideas, a relentless focus on affordability, pushing the virtues of free buses, free childcare, city owned grocery stores. On the way back from Queen's Mark, we're in a hotel just off Times Square. We were driven by Omar. He's from Eritrea. He actually heard us talking about Mamdani, and he said, "Oh, Mamdani's won. Great," he said. And he was talking about this business of prices, affordability. He said that he voted for Donald Trump, but was regretting it. Not so long ago, he said he was taking in $1,000 a week, and he said that was more than enough for car rental, fuel, mortgage, etc. He said now to earn $2,000 a week isn't even enough. So he was disillusioned.
Yeah, well, I think that gets to absolutely to the heart of it, James. Because while the Republicans have tried to continue to frame the Democrats as the wokey party that is continuing to talk about woke social issues like men in women's sports and all the rest of it, what Mamdani has done, even though he may well believe still, and I'm sure does, in those wokey, as the Republicans would put it, is wokey issues. He has not focused on them. He's focused instead on what Omar is worried about, on the cost of living, on those kitchen table issues.
Yeah, in the same way that Donald Trump did at the last election, and it worked for him.
But he's not.
Mamdani's.
But he's not delivered, and I think that is where the Democrats are seizing an opportunity now.
Yeah, and Mamdani, he's copying the formula. That populist message, speaking to a disenfranchised community, the younger generation who can't afford to live in New York, can't afford property, mortgages, student fees, you name it. And that's why it's resonated, I think, with the younger generation in particular. Mamdani's message, it electrified that disenfranchised constituency, disillusioned New Yorkers who, are sick of these soaring costs and also scandal ridden politicians. You've got Cuomo, Eric Adams, et al. It is one of the most remarkable political upsets in New York history, this. And I suppose an injection of hope for Democrats. Many here are comparing the feeling they feel tonight with 2008 and the advent of Barack Obama's ascent to the White House.
Yeah, James, we heard a bit of his victory speech just now. I thought it was very, very interesting. He said, all the sort of things you might expect, like in this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light. There was a sort of poetry to his words. What I thought was really interesting was that it wasn't a speech. It wasn't actually the speech I was expecting. It was firebrand Mamdani. Remember, he's far to the left of the Democratic Party, proudly a democratic socialist. And that word socialist really gets people's hackles up in parts of America. But he didn't hide from it. I am proudly a socialist, he said. This was a speech that I thought was a kind of wholesale defense of socialism. And not only that, but in the economic global capital. He didn't attempt to attack centrist at all. It was, as I say, lyrical, of a type actually we haven't heard for ages. As you say, it was kind of Obama-esque in many ways, but the foundations of it were hardly unifying. Did he bring more people into the tent? I don't think so. If you're not a democratic socialist and you're not a conservative, if you're just a centrist liberal, where does that leave you with this speech? I'd say a little concerned. And if, of course, you are a wealthy financier whose institutions oil New York, well, none of this was what you wanted to hear. Mamdani, for them, is Robin Hood.
Yeah, his victory, the campaign, the enthusiasm, the victory speech, it does feel big. He is a big beast in the party. Now, too big, I think, for the old guard to ignore, as they have been wont to do thus far. There are difficulties for them in selling his brand of politics to middle America, but the party has to somehow accommodate his politics, his support, and success. The genie is out of the bottle now. And Mamdani, he's not alone on that progressive wing of the Democrats. You know, Bernie Sanders, Alexandra Ocasio Cortez, they had this huge rally with him in the past couple of weeks. I do get the sense that the center of gravity is shifting to a degree, and who knows how far it might shift over time, but it's shifting towards that kind of left wing influence.
Yeah, for me, James, the most fascinating part of his speech was his language on Trump. We've commented so many times on this pod, haven't we, that few ever stand up to Trump. Politicians in America or leaders overseas, they are just not willing to stand up to Donald Trump. Well, tonight, a young upstart immigrant, he did just that. He hit Trump hard.
We will usher in a generation of change. And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. Since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Turn up the volume. He's literally egging Donald Trump on. Hear me, President Trump, he said. To get any of us, you will have to get any of us. You will have to get through all of us. I thought that he took the fight straight to Trump and beyond him too, because he also said this isn't only about how we stop Trump; it's about how we stop the next one. Trump's response, of course, on Truth Social, 4 words, and so it begins.
Yeah, I think, Mark, what begins in earnest, of course, is a Trump effort to use Mamdani as a stick to beat the Democrats with. He is a controversial figure, the new mayor of New York. In his time, remember, he has called for the defunding of the police, decriminalization of prostitution, etc., and has been a staunch critic of Israel. Interestingly and pointedly, I thought in his speech, he made it clear there would be no room for anti-Semitism in City Hall. He knows where the attack lines are because he's heard them: communist, extremist, insurgent. And remember, of course, he's long been seen as the mayor that Trump wanted for the same reason, actually, that the Democrat old guard weren't keen and are not keen in middle America, where the next election will be won and lost, parts of this country, rural United States. His left wing politics don't bite in the same way they do in the Big Apple. And of course, don't forget racism. That's an issue in some parts of this country more than others. Mamdani's Islamic faith won't go down well in particular parts of America. But Mark, looking beyond New York, there have been other races in Virginia, New Jersey, and California. Yeah.
Yeah, all significant and all good news for the Democrats. In Virginia, polls closed at around 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And an hour later, Abigail Spanberger was projected to flip the Commonwealth of Virginia from Republican red to Democratic blue. But as we said yesterday, James, for Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican candidate, you lose some.
Yeah, she's not heard that one before, unless she was listening to last night's podcast, Mark.
I was actually in Virginia earlier on today,
Uh-huh.
in Front Royal, which is the area
Right.
of this massive state that she is from, that Winsome Earl Seals is from. She's a popular woman there. It was fascinating to talk to one voter who was clearly not a fan of Donald Trump at all. But did choose the Republican candidate, did choose Winsome Earl Sears for governor, and I think that is a reminder that that these gubernatorial races, as they're known, races for the governor, are not always closely aligned to people's views on national politics. You can very well cross the line, vote for the other side for governor. And I think that's certainly something to remember. So you can read too much into these races, but I think the Democrats will be very pleased with the result in Virginia and elsewhere.
Yeah, I've been to Front Royal a few times, actually, Mark. We stopped there on the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a bite to eat. You've not been to Rural King, have you? In Front Royal?
I haven't, James, but
Well, it's like a big kind of
I've heard you
rural
talking
B&Q.
about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can buy everything that
B&Q with
the
guns.
rural gentleman needs. Well, yes, that's exactly what it is. Guns, everything you would need, and also chickens. But interestingly, we're talking about the economic squeeze. They sell live chickens. You can buy one for about $3. The last time I was there was about two chickens left. They were all sold, and you know why? The
Go on.
price of eggs, because eggs
Yeah.
had become so expensive, everybody was buying chickens. So there you go. So there you go. Even the chickens are feeling the effects of the economic squeeze. But yeah, in Virginia, that victory provides Democrats with another shot of momentum as the party attempts to chart its path forward. This was a campaign in Virginia based on the economy and the cost of living, and that clearly struck a nerve. Exit polling showed that skyrocketing living costs had been a major voting factor.
Tonight, we sent a message. We sent a message to every corner of the Commonwealth, a message to our neighbors and our fellow Americans across the country. We sent a message to the whole world that in 2025, Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship.
So Abigail Spanberger there, 46 years old, celebrating becoming the first ever female governor of Virginia. A different hue of the Democratic Party for sure. She is not Mamdani. The question, unanswerable yet, is which Democratic Party drives this fight back into trying to knock President Trump off his stride in the midterms next November? Is it the progressives or is it the centrists?
Yeah, Mark, an interesting thing about Virginia and Spanberger's victory, among the places that shifted most towards her were cities and places where more than 40% of residents are Hispanic. Now, that's telling because it was, as you know, Hispanic voters who turned to Trump at the last election, helped to get him over the line. The question last night was how would they respond to Trump's hardened immigration policy, ICE raids in the streets, etc. Well, in parts of Virginia, we got our answer. It's also worth noting in that state that nearly every county and city voted more Democrat than voted for Kamala Harris. So the Democrats appear to have done better in her absence.
Yeah, there are fascinating nuggets, and in the middle of the night, we're still drilling down into what they all mean. But I think the Hispanic voters' decisions over the course of the past day are really very interesting. You mentioned the trends that are appearing in Virginia. The same is true in New Jersey, where Mikey Sherrill won the governor's race for New Jersey. She, of course, a Democrat as well. New Jersey was already Democratic in terms of the governor. but they've held on to it. Had they lost it, that would have been massive for President Trump. And I mention Hispanic voters because, as I say, drill down into the results, county level, and it's really interesting indeed. Hudson County in New Jersey, Trump there over the past few years has pulled Hispanics away from the Democrats increasingly, going back to 2020. Over every year in different elections, more and more Hispanics in that county, and the same is replicated. This, incidentally, is a very, very heavily Hispanic county in New Jersey, but it's replicated elsewhere. More and more of them were turning to Trump, but overnight they swung back to the Democrats. Mikey Sherrill getting plus 49 points compared to Kamala Harris's plus 28 points among Hispanic voters there last year. So a Hispanic return to the Democrats. This will be massively good news for the Democrats and a big worry for Donald Trump.
There was something else going on last night, of course, Mark, somewhere else. California, Prop 50, they called it. This was the motion to redraw the congressional map in California to give the Democrats 5 more congressional seats in the House of Representatives. It was a motion to counter what had happened in Texas. They redrew their map to help facilitate 5 more Republican seats. So this was a plan to redress the balance. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, he said this was all about preparing for 2026 and fighting, as he would have it, the tearing down of democracy by Donald Trump. This, Newsom said, was California meeting its moment to stand up. He encouraged other Democrat-governed states to do the same.
Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, we talked about the powerful play goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with the remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026.
Yeah, I thought Newsom's speech in California, which came just after Mamdani had finished. So clearly Newsom was watching what the new New York mayor had to say before taking to his own podium. But his speech was projecting forward and it was dark. He was talking about the fact that he believes Donald Trump and those around him are already trying to steal the midterm elections, are already putting the apparatus in place, putting the people in place to be able to claim victory, even if they lose in the midterms in November. So really sort of like projecting forward, projecting a sense of panic or fear for what he believes Donald Trump is up to. Very interesting stuff indeed.
Projecting himself as well. There's no doubt that Gavin Newsom has his eye on being the Democratic nominee come the 2028 election, and he is strengthened by this redrawing of the congressional map. And he attacks Donald Trump in the kind of aggressive way that we don't see from anybody else on the horizon in terms of who would be the next Democratic leader. So the man who would be the next Democratic nominee at the election in 2028, he has said that, he's interested and may declare at some point. I think he almost certainly will. I think Mark, he's strengthened clearly by this. He's the man whose plan it was, and he is emerging as a leader of strength among potential Democratic contenders. And I think this Prop 50, his performance, his speech tonight, that all funnels towards his presidential ambition.
So all in all, a good night for the Democratic Party, no question, and a difficult night for Donald Trump's Republicans. The beginning of the fight back, perhaps, for the Democrats, and it is a long time in coming. It's a very long time ago that the Democrats, for me, I think, kind of really fell. And that was the moment where Joe Biden stumbled so terribly in that CNN presidential debate. That was the moment that the Democrats kind of lost their way completely. Donald Trump rode into the White House. Kamala Harris was her campaign was a disaster. Well, now, James, over the course of the past 24 hours, with these different results, we're seeing them pick themselves up and getting back on the horse to ride into the midterms. But they're a long way away, November.
Yeah, you're right. I think, as you say, Mark, for the first time since the election, we have seen strength in the Democrats. We have seen weakness in Donald Trump. But the Democrats' problem still remains. They are a disparate party with something of an identity crisis, in need of direction, a strategy for taking on Trump. I think the beauty of tonight is that he has given them a clue where to go, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the party at large is going to follow the formula.
Yeah, he could be their poison chalice. We will see. But it is exciting, isn't it? The race is on, and the midterms are yet a year away. Anyway, that is it. It is late here. Time for bed, I think, James. I bet you've got a bit more work to do, though, have you?
Yeah, do stay tuned. Thanks very much indeed for listening. And of course, do send your thoughts and questions to us at Trump100 at sky.uk as ever. We'll be back on Friday.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All the best.